Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. I'd like to title this short segment, The Breaking of the Three P's. Once again, I'd like to title this short segment, The Breaking of the Three P's, starting with the lead P. That would be the politician. Below him, you have the police, and below him, you have the pastor. Now, we saw here on Capitol Hill the other day where a bunch of individuals attacked the place and caused all manner of chaos. Now, we must keep in mind that the Most High put fire in the midst of the house of Israel and caused all 13 of those families to turn against each other. Hence, we have a problem getting along with each other and coexisting in a peaceful manner, for the Most High ensure that that would not be done. Turned brother against brother and man against his house and things of the like. So we've been in disarray. Now, as we return back onto the Most High's law, he will do the same thing with the families of our enemies. So we're seeing the chaos in the midst of these individuals, in the midst of these nations, in the midst of these people, because we are returning back onto the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. And as we rise, they fall. It's really that simple. So let's look at this setup and what transpired here the other day on Capitol Hill. We have the people in general. So the people normally are corralled and are influenced by that pastor who has these many churches all throughout the earth or throughout the nation. Keep in mind, the Most High's house has only been in one place, and that is Jerusalem. The Most High has never had a house in America, ever, nor will he ever. So the pastor is a key component in keeping the people in check. That pastor is protected by the police. The pastor has always been the biggest snitch as far as reporting back to his enemies on exactly what the people are doing, feeling, and thinking and planning. He is a traitor, has always been. Then you have right above him, you have the police. The police are nothing but the enforcement arm of the politician. The politician makes the laws and the police enforces it. Now, when we're speaking about politicians, we're speaking about the judges, the district attorneys as well. These are all politicians. In the end, your judges and your prosecutors end up running for office anyway. So we have been hearing for calls to actually defund the police. This will never happen, not in America, for the simple fact that the police protects the politicians. He protects the judges and all the lawmakers on Capitol Hill. If they were to defund the police or show no favor to the police, then the police will do exactly what they did on Capitol Hill the other day. Okay, you won't protect us, then we won't protect you. We'll let the crowd, we will let the people come straight at you, and we will no longer be the buffer zone. So this is a breaking down of this 3P system. So the police have pretty much said, okay, if you're going to feed us to the wolves, we have been doing your bidding for centuries. We have murdered these black people. We have killed them. We have done all manner of foul and unjust things towards these people. You have packed the jury box with unrighteous white people that's gotten us off for all of these centuries. We have enjoyed doing harm to these people without punishment, with impunity. No punishments whatsoever, because the judge is going to let the police go free, and so will the people in the jury box. So as a collective, the whole entire nation, the Europeans, are in cahoots in this legal system. So the police made an example of the politicians the other day. If you won't protect us when we run amok of the law, then we certainly will not protect you. We will allow these people to do harm to you. So this call to defund the police, you can scream that all day long. They will not do it for the simple fact that the police are the enforcement arm of these politicians. They also protect them. So what you may find is that the police may have more funding because of an act like this. Now, with all of that, all of the foul things that we have seen transpired, clearly the people that have done this, these are white people, these are European people. Uh, and when you're dealing with this sect, you have to understand at no point in time has anyone called this out to be unrighteousness. We certainly all know that had we done this, had the house of Israel done this, had quote unquote black people done this, we would be killed. They would have been killed. And certainly every black person in America, every Israelite in America would be on edge, because anytime one of us does something, most of us are going to pay for it somewhere or another, or people are going to come to us and speak to us in a manner to see exactly which side of the fence we're on. That way they can gauge exactly how they can engage us, or do they need to be on their guard around us. So anytime one of us does something, we all pay, and rightfully so, because it's been that way in the days of old. When one of us messed up, the whole congregation paid for it, especially if we refused to address that error and punish that person for it. So we're seeing a breaking of the three P's. We see clearly that the police was willing to not be the buffer zone to protect these politicians. Now, what's been missing here is this. You normally see when the house of Israel, aka black people, decide to protest and act up. Okay, if we decide to protest an unjust situation, we know certainly it's a heavy-handed response. However, besides that response, they always, the politician and the police, will always send out the quote unquote black pastor who is a traitor, who is an idolater, and who is an enemy unto our people, because he sits at the table of our enemies and he eats the food of our enemies, and he will not poison our enemies' food, i.e., his ideology. He's in bed with him and he benefits from that. What you do not see when it comes to white people, at no time do you see white people call a white pastor to calm down a white crowd. You never see that. At no time did you see Joel Osteen or any one of these white pastors, these evangelicals, or any of these individuals come up in front of a podium and try to tell white people to calm down and to go home and all of these other things, and to think about what would JC do, or any of this nonsense that you would see our people do. So this whole Christianity thing, okay, it's wickedness from its inception. When we look at it and we think about the quote unquote the white supremacist, and I'm talking about the white supremacist that looks like me, that's that black Christian, and that white Christian. That's the only thing they have in common, is the fact that they believe that some white man is going to die for them, is going to come out of the sky and take them up into heaven. And this is the mindset of our people, psychologically destroyed. So they would have the black pastor come up to calm down the black people, but they don't call that black pastor up to calm down white people. They won't even call a white pastor up to calm down white people. They say that this place, trust in God, and God we trust, is on the money. It's on their money. It's on the currency. What these individuals, what these people trust in, is their weaponry, is their guns. So you will not have them defund the police, because the police is the buffer zone of the politicians as well as the populace as a whole. And the police is designed to do one thing, is to protect the population from quote unquote black people. That's their purpose. And certainly they are to protect the politicians from the people as a whole. So if there's a breaking down of where the police is not willing to protect the politician, then that becomes a problem for the entire nation and it begins to crumble at the seams. So we have to understand how this whole three-pronged fork works. What have been missing lately is that the pastor has been absent from this. For our people are beginning to understand that this whole Christianity nonsense, Christianity is nothing but white supremacy. And if you're a black person that's a Christian, you're a white supremacist of the highest order and the worst kind. So the black pastor is unable to come before our people with this nonsense because we are turning back to the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, and we're figuring out what's really going on. So he doesn't have a voice. So now it's straight up to the police at this point, and the police have pretty much withdrew their hands over the last few days and allowed the people to come into Capitol Hill and tear the place up. Now, what type of punishment will go with this, only time will tell. But my feelings are that this is just the first of many quote-unquote insurrections to come. And this has nothing to do with our people, but yet it has everything to do with our people. The Most High's hand is at work. And what we are to do is to continue to lift our hands in prayer, face Jerusalem, and make our supplications there. And we are not to find comfort in guns. I want you all to keep in mind that all the soldiers and all the wars in times past, every soldier that went to battle had guns. It did not spare their lives. So there's many men that has died in armed conflict, in combat, in wars that were well equipped with guns. So guns will not be our saving grace, so to speak. Now, does that mean that we do not have the necessary weapons to protect ourselves? Should that occasion arise, you should. But let's not place our trust in guns, because once we start to do this, we'll become just like our enemies, which is not a shock, because all we know is what our enemies have taught us. We think like them, we act like them. These things are not to be. So we are to consider our ways and our doings and make it good. So when you see the breaking down of this three-pronged fork, the three P's, the pastor, he's pretty much been pushed aside. He's unable to come before our people when they're upset and speak that JC nonsense about some white man, this and that. He can't do it. Our people are no longer going for that at all. And the police is no longer being the buffer zone between the people and the politicians. And if that's the case, then the people have a free reign upon the politician. And there's no way that this government can function in that capacity. Keep in mind, if you name all the nations, Spain, France, Germany, Italy, all these nations, just think of all of them, Portugal, England, all of these nations are slave nations. All of these nations have been involved in the slave trade. All of these nations are Christian nations. In other words, all of these nations are white supremacist nations, because that's what Christianity is. It puts into one's mind that white people are superior, the white man is God, etc. We've already covered this. And then our people will walk after that same manner and that same mindset. And that is what this pastor does. But as our people begin to reconnect with the Most High, and he begins to bring them to remembrance, to remind them who they are and what has happened in times past, that pastor no longer has a standing. And the Most High will begin to take our enemies, and the same fire that he put into the house of Israel, he will put in the midst of our enemies. And we will see the infighting in the midst of them. We will bear witness to this. And the Most High will strip him of everything, including his money. And once again, where we're headed is this. We have depended upon our enemies for the want of all things. The Most High said that we would in Deuteronomy 20, chapter 28, that we will have to turn to our enemies for everything. However, the Most High ensured that our enemies would have the things that we needed in order to sustain us. And that, because of that, many of us do believe that the white man really is God because he seems to have everything. And everything that we need, we have to go to him for it. So he has become God in our eyes. He is also made, by making himself to be God, they have actually printed this thing up, this idol, and have tried to make God a man via this JC. And it's easy for them to do such a thing for the simple fact that they've never known the Most High anyway. So what they have done is try to make God into some man type image. And we were instructed to never ever do that. So we're seeing the fallacy of these people. We're seeing the Most High literally attack them, and he will in America and everywhere else. Now, when they fall and the Most High strips them of everything, and they do not have anything by which to give us, then we are going to have to consider our ways and our doings. And we're going to have to turn somewhere. And we can no longer follow that which we have been doing. So we must return back onto this law, statute, judgments, and precepts. Now, most of our people who are traitors, there's many that has gotten on the, many pundits that has gotten on TV and speaking about this is not America, this is not our way, this is not democracy, et cetera, et cetera. These are people that look like me, Israelites, speaking as if they and Europeans are one and the same. And it's fascinating to see a person that looks like me speak like this. And this is a pundit that's making a commentary on what they're seeing taking part or taking place on Capitol Hill. How this is not us. This is not the American way. It is the American way. The American way is violence. The American way is lawlessness. The American way is Christianity. The American way is wickedness. That's what it all is. It's white supremacy. And many of our people are white supremacists, a thing that we're not willing to accept and unwilling to face. And many of these individuals, these pundits, and those that have been indoctrinated into the educational system of the European and have been given a place within the society because our enemies knew good and well that they will not poison the food. If this system were to collapse today, many of our enemies, the enemies within, those that look like me, that have been sitting at our enemies' table, they have absolutely no place to go. Their enemies will not receive them, and they certainly will not be received by us. So they're sitting in no man's land, and many of our enemies will be heartbroken and devastated to see this system collapse. And they would rather everything be returned back to normal, because in the minds of many of our people, America is great. However, they have not considered how great could it possibly be if you and your people are at the bottom. They will not consider that. And that goes for the politicians. That goes for our police. That goes for the pastors. That goes for our members in the military, etc., etc. Our people are still in the mindset that everything is everything and that we're all one people. And we're willing to pick up guns and go to war on foreign lands on the behalf of our enemies. I know this. I was once an infantry marine. I did this thing and I was young. And I didn't know any better because no one ever taught me any better. Because the notion and the thing that's going on in the midst of our people is our parents are failing to teach us the history of what has been done to our people by the European throughout the earth. Many of our parents are thinking, well, I don't want them to grow up to hate white people. I don't want them to grow up to be racist and all of these things. It won't do that. What it does, it protects us from being harmed. If we know that a snake is venomous, chances are we will keep a close eye on that snake and keep a fair distance from that snake. However, many of our people have not been told, shown, and clearly explained exactly who we're dealing with and what Europeans have done to us as a whole. And that's throughout the earth. So many of us become trusting of them. Some of us marry them. And in the end, it becomes to our detriment. We become hurt by this whole thing, not understanding the true dynamic of the relationship between our people and the European. So we are to consider all of these things when it comes down to the politician, this police, and these pastors. None of them mean us any good. They're all under one umbrella, and that umbrella is Christianity. Christianity is, and I'll say it again, it is white supremacy. And that supremacist idea is throughout the entire earth because all the Christian nations are white nations. And all the Christian nations that are not white, i.e. the ones that's in Africa, Central, South America, and places like that, they have all been colonized by Europeans. And so therefore they have their thinking. So we're to be mindful when we see this breaking up of the three P's. It is none of our business, but it is our business. It is the Most High doing exactly what he said he would do. And you are to bear witness to all of this. He will fight on our behalf. He will tear down our enemies. And while that's happening, he will elevate us. We will be raised up to a higher stature in all of these nations. We're going to go from zeros to heroes. And the ones I'm speaking of are going to be the ones that's going to walk in righteousness. No one is addressing the fact that these individuals that were on Capitol Hill and these individuals throughout this nation as a whole and this judicial system and this entire government is unrighteous and wicked and contrary to the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts in every way, shape, and form. No one is mentioning that. And when it comes to our plight and what we're going through, there's a whole bunch of solutions being put forth. None of them addresses the fact that we have turned away from the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, and therefore we have become unrighteous as the people that have captured us and have us in their midst. So that is the missing element for our people. That is returning back onto the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. That way we can stand before the wicked and condemn them. It's very tough to do that if you're wicked also. So let's clean up our act, continue to do what we're doing as far as making our supplication towards Jerusalem and calling on the Most High for justice, calling on the Most High for equity, calling on the Most High for peace. Okay? The reason why these European nations are always at war is because they do not know peace. That is why they're so violent. They have never known peace, for they have never known the Most High. They've never walked in his laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. So there will be more to come, and it will be more violent. You will see them turn against each other, and ultimately, as you already know, they will be coming for you. However, if you're in this law, walking in it, the Most High said they will all fall for your sakes. But if you're not, and you're clinging to some idol, some dumb idol that cannot speak, cannot taste, cannot smell, and cannot save, then you're in trouble. Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. There are tough times ahead. You may not believe it, but here's the situation. You don't have to. The Most High will make you see it with your own eyes. And those of you who have worshipped and taken a hold of a graven image, you will be greatly ashamed. Not only that, it's probably going to get you killed. Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Stay on the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, and continue to walk in that path. Peace, Israel.